This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your go-to Iowa-based sports show, hosted by the one and only Elliot Clough.
What's up, Cedar Valley, and hello to the Hawkeye State. This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show here on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. My name is Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. We've got a loaded show this Saturday morning. We're talking with John Steppe, Iowa football beat writer for the Cedar Rapids Gazette, and AJ Green, of course, UNI Panther and NBA hopeful. He's joining us today to talk about the NBA G League Elite Camp, which is coming up, maybe the NBA Combine next week as well. And we weed through a little bit of his options. Of course, we know Iowa State and Duke in the running to try to get him out of the transfer portal. But first off today, what we typically do here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk, if you're a new listener, we usually go Iowa State, UNI pretty hard here. Obviously, we're in the eastern part of the state, so we hit the smaller school in UNI, and I am a UNI insider for Town Square Media, so we have a few connections there that other radio stations just don't have. So we like to have that. We like to do it as a luxury. Obviously, talking with AJ Green today, that's not something that a lot of folks have access to, so we're very lucky to do that. But there is one thing, there's another D1 school that we have to address occasionally, that we should address occasionally, and that's Drake. And when we talk about them, it's going to be about Drake basketball. Like football, they're a non-scholarship school. They're not going to compete for a whole lot of things in the FCS. Maybe they'll have a guy go to the draft at some point in time. I doubt it. Either way, we're talking Drake basketball today because some huge news out of their program this week. It was a huge question mark as to what the roster would look like for them, like every other school really right now, especially with the COVID year, rather, and then the transfer portal. I mean, you really never know what your team is going to look like in the coming year, and it's good thing, bad thing. It can be, I guess it's contextual. That's probably the best way to put it. It's contextual for each team, and it's a good thing for Drake this year, to say the least, in terms of, well, the extra amount of eligibility, because they don't have one guy coming back who could have used an extra year. They don't have two guys coming back that could have used an extra year. They don't have three. They have four guys who have played 4 or 5 years of basketball at the collegiate level, returning with that COVID year, and I'll name them all here in a second, but we know that Drake, last season, they went to the MVC finals and lost to Loyola. They're a good basketball team. But now you have these four coming back after a 25-11 season, 13-5 in conference, and finished third in the MVC. They competed with Loyola into the very last minute of the MVC championship, and they get Garrett Sturtz back, second team all-conference, DJ Wilkins, MVC all-defense, Roman Penn, I believe he's their all-time assist leader at Drake with a storied program, and Penn is very clutch. He's very gathered in late moments in games, and so that's a huge addition to bring back. He's a leader for that team. Darnell Brodie, probably the biggest guy in the MVC. So those are four guys, four dudes who are going to contribute again next year that you're bringing back that have been playing collegiate basketball for a long time. Garrett Sturtz, Roman Penn, been doing it at a high level. DJ Wilkins, great defense. And Darnell Brodie's a guy that they had to lean on when they faced against teams like Missouri State in the semifinals of the MVC tournament last year, because Gage Prim was the best big guy in the conference last year. And then if Austin Fife comes back for the Panthers, Brodie's going to be huge in terms of defending him as well. And don't forget, like, this is not it. Those four are not the only ones coming back from last season that are going to be impactful. Don't forget they have Tucker DeVries, MVC Freshman of the Year, recruited by Florida, recruited by Creighton. I believe he was recruited by Iowa State as well, decided to stay home and play for his dad at Drake. He's coming back. He was their leading scorer last year. And Sardar Calhoun, who is a transfer from Texas Tech, didn't get to see him at all last season. I don't know what we're going to get from him. He was with Florida State for a little while, transferred to Texas Tech. Now he's at Drake. So he's been all over the place. He's clearly a high major talent, and now he's going to be with the Bulldogs next season. Who knows if he's ultimately going to play. I don't know if he sat out this year because of the transfer issue. You can only transfer once without having to miss a year due to transferring in collegiate basketball now, collegiate football, etc. And so We don't know what we're going to get from Calhoun. Clearly, he was good enough to be with the teams Texas Tech and Florida State. So I'm assuming, with health, he'll be able to contribute to the Bulldogs team this season. So look at that. All 6 of those guys going to be part of the Drake roster in 2022, 2023. And you can remove Calhoun and Brodie from the list I just put up. Just in your mind, put them to the side. You got DeVries, you got Roman Penn, you got Garrett Sturtz, and you got DJ Wilkins coming back off an ACL tear. And those are their 4 top scorers from last year coming back. Yeah. For UNI, for frame of reference, they'd be bringing back AJ Green, Noah Carter, and Trey Burhow, for sure. Those are their top 3 scorers. They'd be bringing all 3 back. And for UNI, their 4th leading scorer was Nate Heisey. Of course, he'll be back. 5th leading scorer is Bowen Bourne. Of course, he'll be back. Austin Fife might be back. AJ Green might be back. There's a lot of speculation for UNI's roster. I'm just trying to make a point here. Drake is going to be good. They're going to be really good. That's the thing. And I cover UNI. I went to UNI, and I'm a little bit partial. I think that's been established here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL with me, Elliot Clough, UNI Insider, Town Square Media. And what we're talking about here, of course, Tucker DeVries, Roman Penn, Garrett Sturtz, and DJ Wilkins all coming back for a 5th, Penn, Sturtz, Wilkins, Brodie all coming back for a 5th year of play with the Drake Bulldogs, and they have Tucker DeVries coming back, and possibly Sardar Calhoun, who's a transfer from Texas Tech. And when it comes to Tucker DeVries, I know UNI Panther fans don't necessarily love the kid. There's just beef between UNI and Drake. That's the way it is. That's the way it should be in the Missouri Valley Conference. We love to have those rivalries, and because they both stayed after Loyola left, and there's this big shakeup, I'm excited to still have that rivalry because it's a great in-state rivalry, and it's incredibly underrated here in Iowa, and I think more people need to pay attention to it. The McLeod and the Knapp Center are always packed when these two teams play, and it's just good for the MVC. But Tucker DeVries, if there's any player I see making a huge leap from year 1 to year 2, or just in general across the conference, it's Tucker DeVries to me. I could see him scoring 18-plus points a game this season. I mean, it'd be similar to AJ and the leap he made from his freshman to sophomore year where he became the MVC player of the year. I could see that type of leap for Tucker DeVries, and he's just a sophomore. Like, we're just talking about Tucker DeVries. If all 4 of those other guys didn't come back, Tucker would have a drastic impact still and would probably be, he'd definitely be the focal point of the offense for them, and he's going to be anyway. And then you got Roman Penn coming back, who is incredibly clutch. That dude is a point guard. He is their leader. Roman Penn, you should have seen him in the MVC tournament. I mean, that dude was making free throws like ice in his veins, and to have him back is massive. Then you get Garrett Sturtz, who is a glue guy. This dude he gets cleanup buckets, he gets boards. I mean, just looking at the MVC stats, like collectively from across the conference last year, I think the top 2 names in terms of rebounding are easy guesses if you follow along with the MVC. It's Rank Mast from Bradley, and then Gage Prim from Missouri State. Like, it's not a difficult guess by any means. Number 3, by the way, both of those guys are 6'9". Rank Mast, Gage Prim, both 6'9". Number 3 rebounder in the entire Missouri Valley Conference, Garrett Sturtz at 6'3". 6'3", walk-on kid who is from Newton, Iowa, and he's the 3rd leading rebounder in the entire MVC. That is such a good... It's so good to bring him. He has that hard hat mentality. I know Drake fans absolutely love him, and he is one of the guys that I find really difficult to not just have so much respect for. He's a Josh Hart type. I would say that's probably the equivalent for him in the MVC. Gets boards like mad, defends, and he can score at a decent level. So having him back is huge for the Bulldogs. Obviously, DJ Wilkins coming back, one of the better defenders in the league. Hoping he makes a full recovery with the ACL tear and can play a decent amount this season. Maybe even be back. I know ACL tears aren't what they used to be in terms of possibly having guys out or even ending careers. But prior to this offseason, I probably would have said Murray State, Belmont would be among the top, and then UNI, because we didn't know all the transfer portal stuff was going to happen. Obviously, Noah Carter leaving the Panthers, and then Belmont, they lost some really talented guys, and then Murray, their head coach, went to LSU, so their entire roster followed along or went elsewhere. And with that, this top of the conference, I think, is going to fully belong to Drake, because Isaiah Mosley entered the portal. Gage Prim graduated. They lost some decent players to the portal, and they did bring in some good guys from the portal. Of course, we don't know what that's going to look like. And then when you look at UNI, who won the conference last year, like, we have to address that, won the conference last year. They don't know if their leading scorer is going to be back. They lost their second leading scorer. Who knows about Austin Fife? Tywan Pickford, Trey Burhow both graduate. You lost 2 assistants in Eric Crawford, and then, of course, Mark Sonnen, who is a grad assistant. UNI may just be on track for a rebuilding year. So what I'm saying is Drake is my current pick to win the Missouri Valley Conference in 2022-2023, and I think they're the clear favorite now. I mean, that sheer amount of talent coming back, your top 4 scorers, one of them's Tucker DeVries, who is a high major level player. Again, I would put money on him scoring 18-plus points a game this season. He's gotten used to the speed of the game. He's had an offseason with his teammates now. He's had a full actual season with his teammates now. You know, he doesn't have the travel like some of these guys out of state do, where they go home and then they want to work. And no, Tucker's in state. He grew up in the Des Moines area, Waukee, went to Waukee, and all he has to do is drive however many minutes, 10, 20, 30 minutes, and he's on campus. Who knows? He might be living on his own this year with some teammates and building some chemistry off the court in a way. Because I take a look at UNI's roster comparative to last year when they were the regular season Missouri Valley Conference champions. And you know what? What I'm going to have you do, go to unipanthers.com and go to the roster page for UNI basketball from this last season. You'll see the picture day pictures that they took in the McLeod Center. And once you get there, what you'll see, seriously, if you're listening live, go do it quick if you're not in the car. And if you're listening on the podcast, pause this and go find this roster picture, because the 7 players in the front row from left to right, from Antoine Kimmons to Austin Fife, we either know they're not coming back or don't know if they're coming back. 7 of the 17 players on the roster. You got Antoine Kimmons, who's at Concordia St. Paul now after transferring, had a daughter, wanted to be closer to home, totally understand that. Noah Carter, who went to Missouri, decided to transfer to Missouri. AJ Green, who might be going pro and who might be transferring elsewhere. Tywan Pickford, Trey Burhow, both graduated. Goner Marr, who didn't start the season. He felt like he couldn't continue with his athletic career because of injuries. Totally get that. He would have been huge for the Panthers this year. Really wanted to see him. And then Austin Fife, who we don't know what it's going to look like. He's still with the team. I've seen him doing activities with the team, and of course we're waiting on his future. And then it's a bunch of other young guys. I mean, guys who have actually received time left among those 10. You know, when you disregard guys who we don't know if they're coming back or not. Cole Henry, Bowen Bourne, James Betts last season, Titan Anderson, and Nate Heisey. That's 5 players. 5 players returning that have had some experience at the D1 level. And guys who have started, you got Bowen, you got Nate, and you got Cole Henry. Things are going to be different for UNI next season. I mean, in best scenario, let's say AJ Green comes back, Austin Fife comes back, 75% of what he was. Then you also get Trey Campbell, and Cedar Falls native. Obviously, I think a lot of people listening to this who know who I'm talking about. He's going to be a great impact freshman right away, especially if he gets in the weight room and hits it really hard this offseason. And then you look at the portal, and you hope and pray that somebody comes to UNI from the portal, whether it's the more recent Chandler Baker, the D2 transfer who is visiting UNI here, I believe soon, or he already has. I haven't followed along too closely with that, but you're sitting here crossing your fingers, hoping the transfer portal works out. And I mean, the first thing I thought of when I saw that roster picture was, well, oh, blank, right? And then, geez, does Seth Tuttle have a COVID year left? Come on, this roster needs some work. And if there's a coach in the MVC that can figure it out, it's Coach Ben Jacobson. I fully believe in Coach Ben Jacobson to figure things out, even if it's after this coming year, if it is a rebuild year. I trust Coach Jacobson, the only 5-time MVC Coach of the Year ever, to be able to figure it out. We're gonna find out. And again, I don't think this is a reflection of the program or Coach Jake at all. At all. Noah Carter, he wanted to go to bigger and better things as he perceived them. AJ Green might be going pro. Taiwan, Trey, they graduate. Antoine Kimmons has a daughter. Austin Fife, long-haul COVID issues. It's circumstantial. It really is. And so the circumstances just suck. They suck. They suck hard. And we'll see how it shakes out for him. Obviously, I'll be covering them, and we'll be watching the transfer portal to see how things shake out. Anyway, this is all to say that I think Drake's going to be really good next year. And Tucker DeVries, I'm going to say it now, I think he's going to be the MVC Player of the Year. Back with the guys who have all the chemistry and an offseason of work and understanding the game at a higher level. So we'll be right back here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk, talking with John Steppe, Cedar Rapids Gazette, Iowa football beat writer. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to Cornstalks and Sports Talk with me, Elliot Clough, here on AM 950 KOEL. Iowa football wrapped up their spring practices and work a few weeks ago, but there's always stuff to talk about with Hawkeye football. And now joining us to discuss a little bit all things Iowa right now is John Steppe from Cedar Rapids Gazette, football beat writer covering the Hawkeyes. John, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So I've heard a few things about spring ball, and we'll get to some of that, but I just want to ask you sort of a generic question about Hawkeye football right now. What were your big takeaways from the spring?
Yeah, I always put the disclaimer first before I go into too much that we get a pretty small sample size where we get to see one full practice out of 15, and then we got to see the first 30-ish minutes of another practice media did, and it was like special teams drills was a chunk of it. So you can only, a lot should, and will change in the 100 whatever days between now and first weekend in September. But I think you still have a lot of the question marks that you had going into it, where particularly with the offense, quarterback still, I've been hearing things about Spencer Petras doing really well, but then when we got to the spring practice that was open to fans, it was certainly not Petras' best performance by any means. So quarterback remains a bit of a mystery. Offensive line, particularly with Cody Ince no longer being in the program and him leaving football, that's really almost like losing another starter. He was hurt for a good chunk of 2021. So a lot of people, if they're just looking based on last season, didn't see a ton of him. But when you look historically, he has been a starting caliber player when he's been healthy. So offensive line remains a question mark to me. But then on the other hand, the defense looked outstanding at the spring practice. And I think everyone kind of was thinking that going in, and that got reaffirmed. And Tory Taylor at punting. Kicking, it's still early. So we'll see what happens between Aaron Blum and Drew Stevens on that. So, a lot of it was probably things that we probably got a decent sense of before spring, but it kind of gave a little more of a reaffirming of that.
So I wasn't able to go to the spring game. I was in Cedar Falls for UNI spring game, but I did see a few things on Twitter about one particular player that I think diehard Hawkeye fans know, and a few people. He went to the same high school I did, so a few folks in Northwest Iowa know Cooper DeJean. He went to OABCIG, so repping Ida Grove today is what I'm doing. But Cooper Obviously a huge stud coming out of high school, big recruit. Like I said, heard some good things about the spring game. What can you tell us about Cooper and I guess his transition to that cash position as opposed to playing corner like he did a lot last year?
Yeah, he's going to be a really interesting name to watch, where there are a couple of spaces open in that secondary with, Jack Kerner going pro, graduating. I don't think anyone was really expecting him to spend a 6th year in college. When you have him, you have Hankins, and you have Dane Belton all gone, there are going to be some opportunities. And Cooper, we were hearing good things about throughout spring practice, and he showed it again. Where, I looked at it, I was like, wow, okay, this guy can, he can be an immediate contributor here. So, we saw a little bit more of him toward the end of the season. He was playing in some pretty big plays during the Citrus Bowl too, but he could really be a guy that takes that next step, and Cash could certainly be the spot where he does it. I wouldn't be surprised if things moved around a little bit, but, I think he's certainly a strong candidate for Cash. If he's not there, I see him definitely contributing elsewhere in the secondary, most likely at safety.
From what I've seen in terms of media conjecture about Cooper, is he's just too good of an athlete to not be on the field. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And LeVar Woods was talking about, and, I wouldn't hold your breath for this to happen, but LeVar Woods was talking about him possibly adding another element if you were to hold, because of, the fake field goal opportunities you'd have there. So an incredible athlete, as with your shared roots with him. So, that it's just tough to not, you're going to find a spot for a guy like him on the field.
If you're a Hawkeye fan and don't know the name, I think it's fair to say that you will soon enough.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen the tape from him in high school, he could have gone D1 in track, basketball, and football. So,
and the incredible thing is, not a ton of football schools went after him.
Right.
And you're thinking, wow, what were they, what kept them from recruiting him?
I would assume level of competition. I mean, like I said, I went to that high school. I graduated with 80 people and we had a big class. So probably level of competition.
That's a fair point there.
Yeah. So another huge name that just about everybody knows, Xavier Nwangpa, safety from Southeast Polk. What can you tell us about Xavier and his first semester of college and being with the team early at Spring Bowl?
Yeah, Phil Parker has been impressed with his approach to things right away. It's obviously too early for them to declare whether he's going to be a starter or anything. We've still got a ways to go on that. But, all the early enrollees recently at Iowa have experienced quite a benefit, quite an advantage by being early. When you look at what Keegan Johnson did, what Arlen Bruce did, what Cedar Rapids' own Connor Colby did, you look at that, and now you take, a 5-star safety, one of the highest recruits to ever commit to Iowa, probably the best recruit from in-state to commit to Iowa. Now you give that person that head start, and there's a lot of potential there. So, it's tough to make too much of judgments with him because he's only been a college student for 2 months now. But between March, April of the spring season and August, when they're going into camp, September games, you've got a long ways there for development. So I would not be surprised if he started. I certainly think he should be, playing as a true freshman. Well, I should be careful about the word should, but he certainly has the likelihood of being a contributor as a true freshman. It's just, is that a starting role as a true freshman or not?
Again, we're talking with John Steppe, football beat writer from the Cedar Rapids Gazette here on AM 950 KOEL, Cornstalks and Sports Talk. So we brought up the QB competition already. It's on everybody's mind between Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla. Like you said, heard good things about Petras, but didn't necessarily see it in the spring game. I am definitely personally not a believer in Alex Padilla at all. But when you look at, and I think Petrus has the tools, we just haven't seen it, like physical tools, obviously. I think that's quite apparent. But with what has happened in spring ball, is there any chance at all that Iowa dips their toes into the portal and looks for a quarterback, maybe somebody who's unsatisfied with what happened in spring ball for them at a different school?
To use one of Kirk Ferentz's signature line, never say never. So you never know what could happen. We'll see probably pretty soon if there is an influx of transfer portal quarterbacks. My assumption at this point is I wouldn't put money on it, not ruling it out, but I think it'll be between Petrus, Padilla, and then maybe Joe Labus could maybe, but that's a stretch there. I think Petrus and Padilla are the two front runners there. Padilla looked good in the spring game. He had, not the greatest practice for the drills that we saw earlier in spring, but that was like first or second week of practice. So, he has a little more mobility, which is always a plus. It's interesting. He's trying to put on weight as Petrus is trying to lose weight. So they've got two options that Kirk Ferentz believes that they can win with. Both options really didn't put up great numbers. You're looking at just how bad was that completion percentage. Not ideal, or, that's really not good, is what you're looking at between those two guys. So both players need to play better than they did in 2021. But we'll see. If I had to put money going into spring, I thought Padilla maybe had a little bit of an edge based on how Petrus ended the season. But now I'd say Petrus probably with a little bit of an edge.
Now, in regards to the offense as a whole, Brian Ferentz stepping up, and we've talked about it before with David Eichel. I said I think Hawkeye fans cringe even hearing the name Brian Ferentz. What did you see from the offense? Has it changed that much?
I didn't see any massive, drastic changes, so don't expect a whole new offense coming out. So, I think sometimes it's easy to read into maybe a mention here or a mention there in interviews and, oh, wow, is this going to be different? Let's face it, the thing that Iowa football is, or the thing that it has more than any other place, is continuity and consistency. So, yeah, I didn't see any drastic changes there. It was interesting. The quarterbacks have talked about how they've changed a little bit of the mental side of the progression, where instead of having to, check 5 different things, checking 1 or 2 or 3. And that's something that I think could help them a lot, because the idea for an Iowa quarterback, you don't want them to be having the ball in their hands for 5-6 seconds. Now, 5-6 is a little hyperbolic, but you don't want them to have the ball in their hands that long. You want them to be a little more of a facilitator, as Brian Ferentz said during the spring. So that could maybe be part of the solution here to getting better quarterback results.
And I think most people would agree in that the weapons are there for both quarterbacks. I mean, you got Sam Laporta coming back, Keegan Johnson, Charlie Jones, Nico Reganey all back. Obviously, no Tyler Goodson. Still surprises me that he went undrafted, but no Tyler Goodson. Do you see any of these guys, or Arlen Bruce, really stepping up this spring? I know the tight end position has always been incredibly important, and Sam Laporta is a stud. So any of these guys, maybe not Laporta, that you see really stepping up this fall?
Yeah, if you can get somebody to step up to Laporta level production, I'm sure everyone would be thrilled with that, considering Laporta is one of the best tight ends in the country. But I think Luke Lachey might be an interesting name to watch next year. So that's somebody who I think could maybe take a big step up. If he does, that gives some flexibility to the offense, maybe with a little more of 21 or 22 personnel where they have 2 tight ends on the field. You can maybe open some things up more that way. I think probably more development I'd expect from Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce. The fact that they did everything they did as true freshmen is really impressive. So now's their chance to be able to kind of, take a step back, look at what went well, what didn't, get their feet under them a little more. Bruce was telling me that he changed majors to something that's a little more doable with football. So when you're able to kind of breathe a little more, that, those are two names that I don't think are a surprise to any Iowa fans, but I think there are certainly people who will be in the mix there. I'll be curious to see what happens with Brodie Brecht. He's been doing the 2-sport balance between baseball and football. The challenge there is you could run into a situation where you just don't have enough time to really get good at one or the other. But at the same time, there are benefits to having a little bit of a different training. It's like in high school when they talk about being a multi-sport athlete, but you would have liked to have a little more time with him in football. So he's an interesting person. We'll see though. Somebody else could totally jump out. That's the nature of the wide receiver position. Is I don't think anyone would have expected that Tyrone Tracy would have been as quiet as he was. And then you had Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce looking like future stars. So time will tell on that part.
Again, we're talking with John Steppe from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. Last question for you, John. I know you are the football beat writer for the Gazette, but tons of stuff. Well, one big thing happening for Iowa basketball right now. Chris Murray not going to participate in the NBA Combine, but still in draft process. It's a little interesting. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's a good way for him to continue to get feedback from teams. I think it kind of shows that, okay, this really is more so a feedback process than probably a draft process. So I thought it was interesting. I think, if there was any concern about whether he would go through the process and realize, oh, wait, I could actually be a really good pick. The fact that he's not going to the Combine probably is a little bit of a reassurance to Iowa fans. So that was my overall takeaway from it. And the chance for him to get NBA feedback, could be really helpful and could be a big help in him trying to take that next jump like what his brother did.
Right. I think Hawk fans are definitely hoping that he makes that jump this coming year. Anyway, John Steppe joining us from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, football beat writer for the Hawkeyes. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And don't go anywhere. We will be right back talking with two-time MVC Player of the Year and 4th all-time leading scorer for the UNI Panthers, AJ Green. And we'll be talking about the NBA draft process, whether or not he plans on coming back, and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Corn Stalks and Sports Talk here on AM 950 KOEL with me, Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. So it's been an exciting time for UNI and Cedar Falls' very own AJ Green as of late. Green declared for the NBA draft about 3 weeks ago. He's currently out west. Next week, he'll be showing off his talent to NBA scouts and more at the NBA G League Elite Camp. Kind enough to join us here on a Saturday morning. AJ, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And as we were just talking about, you are out west, did some workouts for the Warriors, and now you're in Sacramento. Tell us about how those workouts have been going and the traveling and all that.
Yeah, they've been going great. It's been really cool just to kind of travel around and see different cities and see how it's just so different around the country, and also just within different organizations, what different teams are like, how the workouts are run. And it's just been super fun to compete against, other high level guys and play. And get in front of teams and try to just, show them what I can do and what I'm capable of. But I mean, I've had some great feedback so far from teams and just what they've had to say. And, it's been kind of hectic at times traveling around the country, but I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way. And it's enjoyable too. I'm trying to take it all in just as it goes day by day.
So you're getting a lot of different perspectives from different teams. I know when we talked at the beginning of the basketball season, you had mentioned getting stronger. There was another one, assist to turnover ratio was a really big one that you took away from the Zoom draft process that you went through 2 years ago. But tell me, what are you hearing from teams? Is there anything that they're saying, okay, you're great, X, Y, Z, we want you to work on this? What are you hearing?
It's just a lot of it is, I can shoot the ball and I can make a variety of shots, and it's just basically continuing to get better and better at that, carry that over. Because, I mean, if you can make shots, as you've seen, there's plenty of guys in the league that have made their way just being able to do that. And, I think that's going to be probably the best way for me to kind of to get my spot. And then it's about building from that. So then I can, showcase that I can play off the ball too, and I can handle the ball and play off ball screens and make plays for others. So I've been locking in on that, and just I guess continuing to be more decisive a little bit, some decision making stuff I've touched on, and just continuing defensively, just to take care of like little technical things like footwork and different stuff like that. So it's been great feedback though, and it's good to have those conversations.
So when I've talked to a few people, or they've asked me questions about your potential to be in the NBA or play at another professional level, I've said spot up shooter. I think that's going to be a thing that a lot of NBA scouts are going to point to, your ability to shoot off screens and stuff like that. It sounds like I'm correct. Is that pretty much what you're hearing right now?
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing. It's just being able to make shots and make a variety of shots. And I think too, I have the ability obviously to handle the ball too, if I need to play more of a lead guard role in that way. But yeah, I think like you mentioned, it's just, especially at the beginning, just going to be able to make shots and space the floor.
Right. And so I think one big question that a lot of fans have for you, I mean, you guys, UNI, you had a great season. Started off a little slow, but MVC champs, back-to-back MVC player of the year for you. What led you to the decision to declare for the draft and also enter the portal?
Yeah, I think, that's something, obviously the NBA has been a dream since I was young. That's always been the end goal. And I felt like, it doesn't hurt to declare, just because I can still come back and I can still go through the same process next year. So, I figured I might as well do that and, give it a shot right now and try and make it happen and work out with teams, get in front of teams and hear what they have to say. And then too, just enter in the portal, just because ultimately the end goal is obviously having a contract, playing in the league, and just whatever's going to be the best route for me to get there, whether that is, going now and playing in the G League or whatever for a year, or going back to UNI or going somewhere else. So just trying to get as much information to make the best decision.
Lot of information coming your way right now, I'm sure. But yeah, again, we're talking with AJ Green from UNI men's basketball, going through the NBA draft process right now. What are the biggest factors for you in choosing what's next?
That's the golden question right there. It's been on my mind a lot, just weighing the pros and cons of each option. I think the biggest thing for me is just going to be what's going to continue and help, like what route will continue to help me develop the most as a player in the ways that I need to then, prove and show that I can fill that spot in the league that's needed with any team. Because it's, I wouldn't, how should I word this? Like, for example, let's say I go and play in the G League or wherever it may be, and it's, you want to be able to have enough kind of freedom to play and try and work on things and develop, and not necessarily always be playing, just trying to prove, that I need to play more or that I should deserve more minutes, to where it's like you're kind of just fighting to play rather than being able to play and like work on my game and develop around, that level. So I don't know what the decision is going to be, whether it's going to be staying in or coming back, but I think it's just trying to find what the best route for me to continue and develop and get better as a player. At this time. So.
Okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good.
Stuff.
We'll go back a little bit to the process and working out with all these different teams. Obviously the playoffs are going on. A lot of these teams and coaching staffs are focused on that. Who's the coolest person you've met so far? Like biggest name you've met by way of all these workouts?
I talked to Gary Payton yesterday with the Warriors at the workout. But a lot of the time, like the actual guys on the team aren't really around for the workouts. It's a lot of just like different staff and people within the organization. But I talked to him. I don't know. There's just, I met Steve Nash just quick out with the Nets, but
that's enough for me.
It's just
That's
been a lot
cool.
of people. A lot of people that have just, I've been able to kind of try and pick their brains or ask questions and get information from. So.
And speaking of picking, people's brains and getting information, you've got obviously Seth Tuttle, who's been through this process before. You've got Coach Jake, you've got your dad, you've got teammates. How have they helped you through this process? And I'm assuming all of your former teammates have been incredibly supportive, no matter what decision you make. Same for Coach Jake, because that's just in line with who they are.
Yeah, 100%. Everybody that you mentioned has been incredibly supportive and, wants the best for me, whatever that may be. I think, everybody obviously wants me to come back to UNI and play there, but they know too that, I have to make decisions that are going to be best for me going forward, and they completely support whatever that may be. Coach Jake has been great about it, and it doesn't get much better than him, and just his support and wanting the best for me in every decision that I've made and will make going forward. And same with, Tut has been my guy, just being able to talk through the process with him and throw things off him and talk about workouts and how they've gone, because he's obviously been through it and has stuff to say and help me with. And my dad too, he wants the best for me. He obviously wants me down at Iowa State and would like that another year. But they've all just been great, being able to talk to them and throw ideas off them and, talk through decisions with. They've been fortunate to have a great group of people supporting me around me.
So a lot of the talk on Twitter is about Iowa State, is about whether or not you want to come back to UNI. It's about Duke. And what are these programs? What do they stick out to you? Obviously, the story of Duke basketball, and Iowa State's a great program too. What about those two programs sticks out to you?
Yeah, they're both. Obviously historically great programs with great success and great, history of guys that have come out of those programs and been successful and been in the league and playing in the league. And they both just have great people within the program, great staff. I've been up and talking to Duke and Iowa State, their coaches frequently. And so like I said, it's everything. It's going to be a hard decision regardless, but I don't have a bad option. So they're all great options. It's just going to be, looking at the pros and cons of each and weighing those out and just going with my gut and praying on it and, trying to define if I do come back, which route will I think be the best.
Again, we're talking with AJ Green of UNI men's basketball. He's going through the NBA draft process right now. With all that noise, and I know you're not super active on social media. You're not a guy who's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook 24/7. But I'm sure you still get plenty of it one way or another. How do you deal with the noise? Are you just kind of head down focused right now?
Yeah, pretty much. I think people are always going to have thoughts and opinions on what they think I'm going to do or what I should do, and I can't do anything to everybody. I can't do anything to stop that. People are free to have their opinions and thoughts, but I know, within the people in my circle whose opinions I'll value and really listen to, and so I'm gonna, worry about that and those people. But right now I'm just, like you said, kind of just locked in and traveling around and working out and, trying my best to just control what I can right now and give it my all with each workout I got and every day going forward. So yeah, I'm not too worried or stressed about what everybody else might be saying, because that's always going to be there. That noise will always be there regardless of what's going on.
And I'm sure it's kind of been there your whole life, being one of the top recruits in the state of Iowa, and then choosing UNI. That definitely wasn't the route that people were thinking.
Yeah, it's
some people were thinking.
I think I've always just kind of figured out and learned kind of how to deal with all of it, and a lot of the credit to is to my dad with helping me with that, and other people around me that have helped me kind of focus on just what I need to focus on.
And so last few things for you, AJ, just to clear the air on one thing. You already told me about it before we started recording here, but Europe not in the immediate future for you in terms of playing professionally.
Yeah, not right now. I mean, maybe if it comes to it down the line in a few years, but I think right now it's either going to be, give it a shot, real shot at the league for a few years, or take that extra year in college and then go through the same process next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with all of the things that are happening right now, like I said, I'm sure your life's just nuts. I mean, what's been the most? I mean, I'm assuming you're having fun too. That's the question.
Absolutely am. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I'm very blessed and grateful that I get to just go travel around and work out with these teams and see what their facilities are like and get to know them. So I'm just trying to enjoy that basically and appreciate it as I go, and always trying to just take a step back and, look at everything for as it is. Cause I know there's plenty of kids out there that this is their dream to play in the NBA, and there's plenty of other people, that have gone through college and haven't been able to do it. So I'm going to appreciate it for them, just as much as I'm trying to make it happen for myself too. So it's been awesome. I mean, I've been taking videos and pictures at every place of the gym and whatnot. And I'm definitely going to, enjoy it and cherish these memories.
AJ, we appreciate you taking some time, man. We've said a little bit here, I'm sure you're crazy busy wanting to get as much work in as you can and show off your talent to these NBA teams. One more thing before we let you go, the NBA G League Elite Camp. How did you get that information that you were going to be a part of the camp?
Yeah, that was my agent. Big props to my agent for talking to people and getting me in that camp. Just with conversations I've had with him and some other people around me, it felt like, I I'm at a level that I deserve to be in that camp, and I feel like I'm a good enough player. And so my agent did a great job just talking to people and making sure I have was able to get in that, and I have that opportunity, and I'm just gonna go there and play my hardest and try and make the most of it, and show people and show teams what I can do as a player. And I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Do you have a rough idea of what it's going to entail, and for that matter, how you can show off what you got in order to get the opportunity to compete at the combine too?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot of just they'll go through like the typical combine, like testing and stuff, measurements, and like the vertical like jump and all that stuff, and then it'll be I think just some like drills, some shooting, and then 5-on-5 games. So it's just 2 days. I think the 16th and 17th are the actual days of the combine where we're in the gym doing stuff. And I think the day before there's like, you can do interviews with teams, or teams can like invite you in to do a quick interview and whatnot. But I think that's kind of just what it entails. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, AJ, that's my last question for you. Like I said, man, no matter who ends up with you, they're lucky to have you, and we'll be rooting for you wherever you end up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. Thank you.
And that'll do it for this week's episode of Corn Stalks and Sports Talk with me, Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. If you missed any part of today's show, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, of course, Google Play, Spotify as well. And if you're listening on any of those platforms, please make sure to subscribe, leave a rate and review. That really does help us out a lot. Also, you can always listen on KOEL.com. You can find the podcast there. If you go to listen live, there should be a tab up top. And if you want to listen live, you can always do that on KOEL.com at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. every single Saturday morning. Or you can go the old-fashioned route. We're not judging. AM 950 certainly works as well. All that matters is you're listening, folks, and we appreciate it. Once again, folks, my name is Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter, and this was Corn Stalks and Sports Talk.
Catch those springtime vibes all over Arizona. Break out of the winter blues by hitting the water at one of our lake and river parks. Take a hike among the wildflowers. Just make sure to stay on the trails and leave the flowers for the bees. Discover Arizona's best kept secret and visit azstateparks.com/amazing to start your springtime adventure.